Hello, everyone. There I am. I have a little flu today, so I hope that doesn't bother you too much, but I don't want to skip that one again because it was too often in the last weeks that I skipped sessions. I don't want to do that anymore. At least I try. So what we want to talk today about is agentic coding again, and why I think that agentic coding is not only why I think, but I will show you, of course. We will develop a little front-end feature, which will be, I don't know if we use it actually or not, but I will do that in an environment which we actually use in production, which is a SaaS product of us, which isn't released in the B2C sector, but it's used in the business-to-business sector. And we have the content management system, which is basically a page builder. And inside the page builder, we will build something like a sortable thing where you can create links and a little bit of content management and a link section, a modal which going up where you can edit those kind of things and make sure these kind of things work. And we will take a look how far we come in this, maybe 60 to 90 minutes together with an agent. So I will work primarily with an agent. So the execution will happen with, I'm not 100% sure yet. You can leave me, thanks, Tony. Hi, Tony. You can basically give me an idea of, do you want to see Claude Code? Do you want to see Cursor CLI? Or do you want to see Junie with GPT-5? Because I didn't like Junie so far, because Junie is the JetBrains version of Claude Code. A little bit like between Cursor and Claude Code. I didn't like it before because it felt like the dumbest of all. It did things I never asked for, and it didn't do the things I actually asked for, so we ditched that entirely. And now I tested it again with GPT-5, and I don't know what they have changed, but it is actually more convincing right now than Claude Code is for me, and probably way cheaper. That's another aspect of it. So let me know in the comments when I go through the explanation now what we're going to do. What do you actually want to see, right? First of all, do you hear my mic well? That would be the first question, because I forgot to look. Somehow my original microphone I tended to use was discharged as I pulled it out of my pocket. I need to charge it right now. So I have a backup microphone. I hope you can hear me well. Just tell me in the chat if it's not the case. And yes. So again, so we will go through a feature today in 60 to 90 minutes right about, and we plan it with, let's say, even the test cases. We plan everything we need to know about the feature. Then we define the first iteration and take a look how the execution will be within basically an AI agent, which is like doing the execution, and we do the review process, right? So setup is perfect. Thanks a lot, guys. That's cool. Testing a new feature. I can show the chat here now. Whoa, it's working. Great. Cool. Good. So quickly leave me in the comments in the next minute. Do you want to see Junie or do you want to see Claude Code? So I think Claude Code is known to most people. I have used it now for 600 million tokens so far. It costs us around about, I don't know exactly, 6 million tokens. It was in Julie actually, and it was $400. So it is like that's what Claude Code is actually costing us. And I think that GPT-5 with Junie is way less expensive and as good as Claude Code so far. So that's an interesting part. So if I don't hear something, I will go with Junie because it's a little bit better integrated into the UI of JetBrains. Claude Code, of course. When let's do it with Claude Code then. Good. Let me quickly prepare that, and that we can basically go into a little planning phase, and I show you what I intend to do. I have a weird setup today, so sorry for that. It takes a little moment until I get that ready. It's a new one. I use a new software, so I need to get firm with that one. So we want to share the screen here, and we want to share a window. And it's probably that one, I hope. Yeah. You see that? Okay, cool. Then let's get rid of the chat for a moment. So we have Benedict asking for Claude Code. Oh, he's happy with Junie as well. Now you make it more complicated for me. Never mind. Let me quickly take a look. Do we have something? We have on Substack some people, which we can't see in chat. Cool. Okay, never mind. Claude Code. So Claude Code it's very clear. Claude Code. We have a Namo. Hello, Namo. I can't see your can't see your comment actually on Restream, but anyway, so we're going with Claude Code. So first of all, Claude Code is that little tool. So we use it basically then here in our project. This project is a Next.js round about 180,000 lines of code project, which we use in the business-to-business sector. It's now coming as a new product in the business-to-consumer sector as well. It is nearly 4 years old now. It is a grown code base. It's a used code base. We use Tailwind in it. We use TanStack Query in it. TypeScript, of course. I'm a huge Tailwind fan, by the way. And the backend is based in Next.js, but we don't do anything in backend. Backend today is already provided, so we use what is there in backend, and we just build the feature around it. And we will basically start here then. And okay, that's then the Claude Code into thing, and we will basically going through that here. And what I want to do is, so this is a little development environment where I can work in, and so that's a page builder thing. So we can basically take a look and define some new layouts here, can move them around. But what is interesting for me today is the link section, which is basically some form of link tree alternative thing. So you basically have your links here, you have your header, and things can be moved around, or you can just add them here. And that's basically some building blocks you can add to that one. And what I want to do today is to rebuild this building block here just one more time. So maybe I reuse it later. I don't know. Just for the sake of displaying the capabilities of an agent today, we basically build that block again. And that block is basically what you see here. So right now I have two links here. I can open those links and share it via web share. I can basically edit those links here by moving them around, and I can add a new link. I could add an image now here as well. I could add an icon here as well. I can type something inside there, save it, and I could delete that link. So there's a little bit like a CRUD system, so you can use that basically. And the idea is to rebuild that one without us doing the actual hands-on work. And the reason why I wanted to show that to you is that is actually not a very simple thing to do. So when you want to have it in a tested way, when you want to have it in a way where you plan up front some things and don't just code along and try to get to a goal, you actually need to put some time and effort into making that working very well. The original version isn't actually finished yet, what you see right now, so that is not done yet. But I wanted to take that one because I needed to have a topic for today. So I just will use that one, and we will go through that process. And we were going, since I don't need to draw something now in an Excalibur or Miro board, you just have an basically clear overview now of what's going on. We want to build or rebuild that thing, starting with having items which we can store in the database, and then going through the CRUD process where we can basically add, delete, or modify those without reinventing the wheel when it comes to API, because that is already done. Any questions so far? So I will I'm going through the chat on my sideline here. If you have any questions, let me know. I will go through them. I'll quickly take a look if there are no other comments missing so far. No, looks good. Okay, so how do I start right now? So first of all, so we all know vibe coding, so the terminology vibe coding. So if we would go now into vibe coding, right, the original idea would be I start to type what I want into the text thing here. So I would basically go and just type along what I want to have. And if it's not what I want to have, I would give, let's say, a follow-up response. I don't care at all what happens inside the code base. What is the result? I don't review it. I just accept it. So it's a bit of a black box thing. That is not what we wanted to do today, because that doesn't work. It is nothing you can really use in production at all. I cannot see where you can really use that one, but you can do it in another way. So I have here now a little file. So we don't go through the entire structure right now because it is a fairly large amount of code. So we try to break it down a little bit. And so you don't need to have the real context knowledge to understand what's going on today. But you will see how I prompt these things, how I go through them, because that is what we have done now for nearly 3 months now. And we have to say we were getting more productive as a whole team with that kind of solution. And I think we don't want to miss it anymore, right? So let's go through it. So first of all, we should start with a general idea where we know what we want. We know we want to have basically a new layout item. As I said here, we have a new layout item here. I activate the builder. So when I press basically this page, I would like to have another link collection. Let's call it link collection 2 for today. It shall appear here, and when I click on it, it basically adds this new layout we've created, and then we can start to add those links there. Okay, so task is to basically link collection CSS layout link collection 2 TSX. This is how we actually name those kind of things. So we have very long names in the code base, but we basically tend to use that because it's actually working quite well. So first of all, we're going through and explaining a little bit in a preamble what we actually want to have. So we want to create a CMS layout item block, in which you can add, modify, and delete link items. So okay, let's make it a little bit larger. We're just seeing the browser. That's not so good. Wait a second. I was sharing the window because, yeah, maybe it's the wrong terminology. I want to have entire screen, right? Yeah. Awesome, but that's the wrong screen, that one. Now you should see it. Sorry for that one. Okay, so I make that a little larger. So we want to create a CMS layout item block in which you can add, modify, delete link items. So each item should have a h1 title, a content, a description, an optional description, and a link. That's it. So what I do now is I need to make the first decision now. So I had in mind that we want to add images as well. So the image is not essential to create this feature. Essential would be to have a title, a link, and a description. So even the description wouldn't be essential, right? But I want to do it step by step. So I'm a big believer in doing things in iterations. So we can add that later, even in that session, but don't start with an entire thing where you plan something totally through, because the tendency is definitely then to have to take that in its entirety and throw it into Claude Code. Because you couldn't see it, it's basically here. I will put it inside here then, and we take a look with the planning mode, what it gives us back. But the problem with that is, if I put too much into that, and you will see that, we will get to the token limit, which is, I think, in Claude Code, somewhere between 128,000 to 256,000. I'm not sure 100%, but it can become very quickly that you go into the context window switch and it starts to compact the thing, and then it's dementia. So it doesn't understand anymore what happened in the last 20 minutes. And that's horrible. Don't do that. When it starts to do that, restart. Don't just proceed. You will pay a lot of money for garbage output, because it basically forgets. It is basically like a shift change. There's a new worker coming in who didn't know what happens in 20 minutes and just continues working with some kind of briefing, which doesn't include all the learnings of the last 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever time that is. So I basically cannot really recommend that. So start with small iteration. So that is basically the small iteration. So basically what we want to do. So let's go ahead. So we want to have a title and we want to have description and a link. And the items shall be sortable with a drag handle. Exactly, this is a preamble. I don't go into technical details. I want to write it down so everyone understands and the AI understands what's going on here. So every item should be modified and saved in the moment in which we edit those. So no state necessary to create. That is another aspect I want to have right now. Okay, and the reason why I want to have that is basically just a design decision. So we could make it in a different way. So we could basically modify everything. Then we have a save button, but we don't do that in that one. I just decided that right now that everything we do. So when we have a click here and we want to edit something like here, it is basically saved, and the other person would see that one. Exactly. Let me quickly take a look at the chat. Oh, good. Okay. Good. So we have the very basic structure. So now technical requirements. We build up on the existing CMS page layouts. And this is the first time I add something now, which is very important in my opinion, which is context files. So we have a bunch of context files here. Those context files are files where we basically have informations, how things work, and we keep them up to date, as well as interfaces, so there's a tendency to put those interfaces in. I'm not sure until today if that is actually the best thing to do or just reference it, but we saw that it is actually working. It's a little bit like code duplication, but it scans those things anyway, and it gives a good explanation. So since we're thinking like we're working with humans, so we try to give a file which explains what's actually going on here, and helping like those are the layouts available, this is the structure and these kind of things. So what I'm going to do now is to actually pass for that one the absolute file path to that one. The reason why I do the absolute thing is you save a little bit of token space, because when it tries to find, let's say you pass 10 files into the system, it will do 10 attempts to actually look for the file. And if you give it like that, it basically grabs the file directly, which saves you a lot of token space and time, which is quite good. So basically, I provide now a little bit of context. So the AI does know what that means. Just for anyone who didn't work with agents before, the agents don't know about these things. Actually, so Claude Code doesn't, and Junie doesn't. So when you say those things, it basically, what it does is it takes a look for those kind of things and tries to find it with some kind of search needles inside your code base. In a small boilerplate code base that can be very fast, everything above 200 kilolines of code is this thing which becomes pretty quickly expensive, right? So that is very important to basically go through these kind of things like that. So we built up on the existing page layouts. So then I want to provide as well, that's just an internal, so you don't need to know what is actually behind those files, because it would be pretty much unrealistic, but follow the design system rules. That's actually a double thing, because that is as well in the Claude MD written down somewhere. So that's our Claude version, MD version. This is, you see everything here regarding how hooks are, how we basically have file structures, how we do queries, how we do testing. It is all basically wrapped up here. So all the technical things like the engineer need to know to actually execute test things with Cypress in this case. So we have Cypress component testing here, how things are compiled. This is all inside here, how we actually work with these kind of things. I just see something like here right now. I quickly need to add something because that is a new thing I prepared. I need to quickly make a note here. Okay, because there was another one inside there. So this is the interesting part. So we basically say follow these design rules and follow the SCG rules, which is basically a standard component group. Which is not correct in this case, but it does not want to run, and write the tests first in each iteration. So we're going for the approach basically to say we want to do a little bit of TDD today. I want to say something about that because I'm actually a big fan of TDD. During the agentic coding, TDD become some form of hybrid. So I don't necessarily do those kind of things like really write the test before the implementation because it is actually the same process. So when I define them here, which I do in a moment, then the AI is actually doing that in the same process like it is like it's not like the first process to write down the test. The second one is to write down the implementation. In the very beginning, I was doing it like that, but I saw that this is actually not necessary. So it doesn't benefit you at all because you cannot do anything and you shouldn't do anything during that time. So what I don't do is stop the agent. I will show that to you. I don't stop the agent. I let it become done, right? I let it run through, and then I go and take a look what actually happens. And the reason for that is if I would stop continuously the agent, I do something wrong in my planning phase. So that's on my side. So my code base is dirty. I'm bad in prompting, something like that. So let's go with just telling it to that AI right now, write the test first in the iteration, but it is the same process. So I don't expect to have first a test and then it asks me to go for the execution. This won't happen. Okay. So that is the very, very basic thing. So now we need to tell a little bit about the UI. So we want to create a CSS layout link collection item. That is basically the file. So I will go now and take a look at the old implementation, go through the path and say, okay, I want to have it here. So what I do now is basically telling a little bit about what I want to have, where I want to have it. The reason for that is I learned for myself that everything, wait a second, my headphones decided to just go off. Okay, my experience was that everything I don't define becomes a little bit messy. So the more I define up front, that's actually my part, the less gap is there, or the less space to make assumption by the AI. So basically, that is basically the component group. So we think in component groups. This will be the component group. And this is the main component where we start with. And by giving that and the idea how basically SCG works, this is just an internal thing, it's a standard component group. With that information, I'm nearly 99% certain, if not 100% certain, that the outcome is correct in that moment. It is in the correct place because I have defined where to start, how to start, under which rules, even put that rules 2 times in. So that's still something I do. I put those things 2 times in. Okay, so UI, that's the main component. So a link item, so it's basically a vertical group. I like to basically say flex call get 4. Let's just give it like that. A little bit of Tailwind just to break it down. The AI does know what actually happens here. the link item shall look like, or this is the wrapper. Exactly. So we have the we have now the CMS layout. So no, 1 second. For the H1 and description, we use index 0, basically a I needed to take a look up. How is CMS title? I quickly need to take a look how it was called. CMS title. Yeah, anyway, we use those ones. So for the reason is, so we want to reuse a so we want to reuse an existing thing for the first. Oh, that's actually a little bit complicated now for you, what I would try to explain. So we have here, do we have it? Yeah, we have here a H1. So this is basically a title. I put that title in now. And that little title up there is what I'm concerned about right now. So I forgot to explain that. It's my fault. So in this system, we have layout items. Those layout items are basically items inside the layout. So we have the page, we have layouts, which is each of one of those, and we have layout items. And I need to basically define now the structure of these ones. So I don't want to bother too much with that stuff because it's not valuable to you because it's internal stuff. But in a rough explanation, we have a headline and a description. This is the first item. So an item can have a headline and a description, as well as the subline images and stuff like that. But that's okay. So it is basically index 0. And then we have so we have basically all the other items are those. So we need to have a dynamic version of actually taking a look how the AI then shall build that we can sort those kind of things, because the order of the items is the sorting as well in that case. This is how I define it right now. And yeah, that needs to be done then, actually. Yeah, let's take a look. So H1 description. So here we use a title and a CMS. I need to look it up. I can't. Rich text. This one here, and both using index equals 0, since I provided the context about how page layouts in detail work. So this is quite a long context, but it should know now what that means. So I don't need to be like too expressive here. Good. Then so we have that one. Then we have a vertical group. This is a little bit about the UI, and the link item is basically starting from index 1. We have a dynamical list of link items which follow the order of index 1, 2, 3, and exactly. So sorting would mean that we can drag and drop with sortable JS installed, and you would only sort starting from index 1. The autocompleter is still something which makes me mad, but somehow I actually want to use the autocompleter because it's so often useful, but so often it basically hinders you to make correct autocompletion as I was used to it. So it's a little bit annoying to type sometimes. So anyway, so that's about the sorting. And so that's the link item. In the wrapper, I forgot to add basically a button admin. That's a component. So that's how I define components in the text. So it does understand that very well. You can do it with that version as well. Works fine. but that's a little bit faster to write. So it basically finds those kind of things. Add a button item with add link, and list adds, which adds a new link with index 1. No, that's bottom of the list. It's a little bit contradictive here. So just let it like this. As you see, I don't define everything in very detail. The reason for that, it's an AI. I assume that if I prepare the framework around that well, the AI does know what is to do. So if I explain it in a way that I need to micromanage every little kind of thing, I can build it myself. So that's the idea behind that. So it's so normally when I do that, I just write it down. I don't explain everything, of course, but that's the way to go. So you shouldn't explain too much, but enough so that the assumptions are into the leading the AI into the directions of where you want to have it, right? So you should have a goal in mind, which is the first iteration, which we were talking about. Okay, so we have the link item sorting. We want to have a let's keep it simple this time. We want to have a icon, an icon button for trash, font awesome, to delete the item. Exactly. So to delete the item. Let's sorting, adding that one. Okay, now and we keep it simple this time as well because it's about time, so we could do it more complicated. But add a text field which takes which takes the not the title of the link. It doesn't necessarily, but takes the href URL and use validation built into the text field component. Exactly. So that's it. So we can actually do that. So I made a little bit of a mistake. I said make it TDD, but it will be a little bit complicated to test it in a way where we don't have a state. So it is way easier to test that kind of UI when you actually have a state. So I'm thinking of having a state this time, just it's a good thing to write it down because it doesn't make sense if I basically do everything live to the database. I need to test differently. Then basically I create a state and then I have just a mutation left, but the mutation could be tested separately, which actually helps quite a lot. Okay, then so every item should be modified and saved. Make it different into a Zustand state store, and we add a save button, which actually now that's I think that makes things very complicated because that is not the UI for that. So now I'll revert that. We will take a look what happens because that is a little bit of a design issue we have right now, which is actually not an issue, but it's a little bit of a complicated thing to do. So I just go with that. Just forget what I said. A little bit of a brain fart right now. Okay, so wrapper, link item. So we have, let's quickly take a look. We have that one, that one, that one. The sharing comes later. Icons and images comes later or will come later. Okay, so we have that one. Now we learn a little bit of things like how we want to actually mutate the kind of things. So the data we get is clear, but the mutations not. So we need to have mutations. It is basically use can item create. Let me quickly get those. It should know them, but I will add them. It's a little bit easier now. Create, update. So, and that's another one is the item order, I think. Item order update. I think those should be the ones. What have I done? Oh, never mind. That one is actually not a TSX file, it is a TS file. And we, of course, need item delete. So those are the mutations. Development URL different than Claude. I need to, because it's actually not my original development environment. Okay, so we have that here right now. What I'm doing right now, so my brain is a little bit empty. So I think I was going through that one. Now I want to see finally what actually the AI thinks of that. So I put that in. So it's basically copy pasted inside there. I go now into plan mode. This is I think the biggest advantage right now is the plan mode of Claude Code, where you really can switch between those. And I go with the plan mode right now. So we just wait now what actually happens here, and taking a look what will happen right now. So I quickly go to a comment where we have Kaloyan asking, can you instruct it to Yagni and avoid assumptions? A good question. Well, we can try to instruct it. As far as I saw, okay, different. So it is a little bit based on the model. If you don't pass Yagni, it is, of course, how the model is trained. So I saw that GPT-4 is so lazy, it don't try to add any code which is unnecessary. So GPT-5 is very much on point, while Claude Sonnet, or it's probably Sonnet 4, is a little bit more extensive. So it could help if we actually pass it. I would try that. So as soon as it's done, basically, I will go through and ask it to rethink that in a Yagni way, and if it can make things a little bit less complicated. So that's what we're going to do now. So let's take a quick look what it's doing now. So we see that it is basically reading context files right now, and a little bit slow today. I don't know exactly why, but well, it's going through those kind of things, and it learns and tries to understand these things. The very important aspect right now is it is not going through your code base. So far, it hasn't looked up anything in the code base. If you do vibe coding, it basically reads wildly in your code base and basically reads so much stuff which is totally unnecessary to understand and fills up the token space. If we would have infinite let's say GPU capacity and token space, it would be no problem. But in this case, it is, because it is all limited. It is actually very limited. So we need to really try to stay below in one window with what we've just tried to do. This is the reason why I didn't add anything else right now. This is a good first start. So I forgot to actually to define the test. Anyway. So based on my analysis, of the existing CSS pages, I identified all the requested component patterns. So basically, it repeats everything: consistent props, index numbers, safe patterns, validation framework, testing strategy, consistent data testing patterns. Yeah, this is actually how we do that. It's not my favorite, but I don't want to change the pattern, so we still use data test IDs. Component structure, exactly, model patterns, editor, model wrapper with, okay, that's a good point now. So it tries to say modal patterns. So that's something now I need to be prepared for. I never ask for a modal. So a modal would be, in this case, this little thing when I basically open here this thing. This is what we call the editor modal, right? I have never asked for that, because what we want to do is basically doable with an in-place editor, or shall be doable with an in-place editor. So that's the first thing. So the first thing is I always give it a number, because this is the way how I can put multiple things in. I never ask for a editor modal. Please avoid that. We want to be in place editing all the time. So that's the first thing. The second thing is rethink with Yagni in mind the task. So we just take a look what it actually will do. Define, now I pass it to the AI because I'm a lazy person. That's actually not what I want to do, but I do it now. Define 3 test cases which you would implement up front. It's important to decouple, as I forgot that as well, to decouple the mutations from the items so that we can pass this as a function, basically on save or change, whatever, how you want to implement this. And so this is a little bit like, I don't define that 100%, so it shall think in its own context how things are actually well. So I'm pretty confident here because I know that it will take a look into other files. So there could be a little like a cheating thing I could do right now, is to say, okay, as a point 4, what I forgot as well, I could say we already have a component which is similar to that one. Take a look at this one. But yeah, it would be a little bit of a cheating thing today. I don't do that right now. So going to that one. So not too much. So let's take a look how it will change the plan. So if that is like something where you think, oh my God, this is you basically don't code, you just discuss something with the AI. This is mostly what agentic coding is about, in my own experience. So instead of coding things, I prepare the coding part. And the reason for that is about, I had the discussion several times already where people say, yeah, but then I could do it myself, I'm faster. Well, I doubt it very much because we will see how much code it will actually produce. And I know that from my own programming now since 32 years, I think, something around that. And I know that every time I think something is easy, it actually turns out to be a little bit more complicated than I thought. It will take longer than I thought, and it will mentally drain me. So if I need to type and code things, I will spend the next 1 or 2 hours doing that right. I will go through that one, do the next one, and that will exhaust me mentally. And now I can basically define that thing. I have a plan how these things can be done. It is basically going through these kind of things now. I have a final plan which I can pass into production so that the AI agent can produce that. And I have a documentation as well. So that can be, so if you want, you can basically say extract that into a context file, a README file, put it next to the component, or basically into the component group. And for the next time, you basically have a broader understanding of what actually going on next to the tests and next to the actual code base, which is hopefully typed, right? So that's one of those reasons. So I quickly go through. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Happy to answer those. I hope my voice isn't that bad today because actually it hurts a little bit to speak. Let me quickly get some help there. Okay. So Claude Code seems to be pretty slow today. But what I wanted to show you here is so far. Where's my mouse? There. We have not many tokens used for that prompt so far. I see when you don't define things properly, you have a lot more tokens here. So if you see something like 10K tokens, 20K tokens, 50K tokens, then most likely you are not very efficient in prompting. I mean, you can do that. It's working because the AI can do that, but you fill up your context window very, very quickly with these kind of actions. So the reason why it's a fairly low number now for that prompt is that we basically provide a lot of intelligence already up front, which is the reason why we always should say your learnings, pass them back into the context files. This is one of the last things I do in the end, to give you a little bit of an idea of what's going on right now. Okay, now here I see that was what I want. So it's basically here, that's a good example. I just said that, and I didn't see that it's actually doing exactly that, what I wanted to prevent. That was, my fault again. I could have easily said that this is a text field validation property called URL absolute and relative, something like that. That's a property you can pass, and it would know that. Instead, it was basically going for 50K tokens and 2 minutes to find it by itself, and it used 22 tools. Okay, that was very inefficient of me in that was a problem. So I'm probably talking too much today, not concentrating on these kind of things, but for you to see, it is good to fail in that moment to see that this is bad. If you do that, let's say for every line, you will basically have 10 times or even more tokens used, and you are quickly to your token space. And this is where people say it's totally garbage, which comes out later, because the more tokens you have filled up, the less accurate the result becomes. So that's very bad, actually. So let's take a look. Yaki approach, minimal vibe approach. In-place editing only, no more dance, immediate save and change, decoupled mutations via function props, simple drag and drop via sortable.js. That's a good thing. That's the structure. So we have it in link collection too. So we have the main component, we have the test file. This is how we want to have it next to the other one. We have an element file where the link item is inside individual link item, which is okay. The naming is not ideal, but I can refactor later. I don't want to spend more money now on defining these kind of things. That is something I can change in review just by click of in the IDE. So we don't want to have link item here, because if we work like this, we have 5 or 6 components in 2 weeks naming like that. And I want to have it clear when I search for items. So this is definitely not how we want to call it. But it's okay for now. Test cases, setup, mount component with empty layout. That's okay. Render CSS title and index 0. That should be doable without any format. Is good. Shows add link, click, test case, link item setup, containing link items management. So it basically mocks the data, it drags sorting on reorder, and it stops it, which is good as well. So let's take a look for the sake of easiness. So maybe we need to have a little bit more test cases, but don't overdo it. We are already a little bit into the session right now, but yeah, anyway, props interface. So it's basically on create. That's good. I like to see that one here. This is okay. I asked for that one, so but it basically tells me. So it does an asynchronous function here. We have an update function. The reason why we have an item index here is that it needs to know in which item of the actual wrapping element, the layout, it needs to save it. It's a promise as well. On delete, the very same thing. Order is new order, so it thinks like that. I said something before that there is already a file like that. So if that would in reality be a duplication of code, so a new feature, and we don't want to reuse it, but it should be in the same pattern. So if you decide to go for that, it would be, of course, important to tell it that we already have built it. It shall take the pattern from there. I just do that for the sake of demonstration today, even though it is a production code base. Then I don't want to do this, just to show you that it can build it without telling that it's already existing. But it would be, of course, because you don't want to have this pattern in the next component, a different pattern, because, yeah, it was maybe a different AI, a different day, a different prompt, these kind of things. So that is actually a untidy variant, but we are assuming that we're building it now for the first time, so it will be the pattern for the next time. Implementation details, title and description. We have those both at index 0, link item starting from dynamic list. Yes. Validation is URL. It did it wrong, but we will fix that later. It's basically URL and relative, because we want to allow relative URLs as well on the own page. Minor detail, sorting, sortable list. The reason why I don't put those kinds into tests is that we use basically text field, which is very well tested. I think there are 130 tests inside the test for text field, and it's very well tested. So I don't test it inside here. There's no point. There's no point in behavior, because it is already tested. I don't see a value in that one. A sortable component with existing patterns. Delete is an icon button. I haven't told it where, so we'll go into iterations afterwards. No state management via props, files to create. Okay. Let me quickly take a look. Do we have any more comments? And otherwise, I go for so to any time. So we have 7 people on Substack, 7 on LinkedIn, and some on YouTube. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions so far. I'm happy because I need to have something to talk about right now because I press now the enter key. So we start right now. Finally, this guy stopped talking and doing things. Okay, so perfect. Let me start following the TDD approach. We could do something here and open Cypress in meanwhile and take a look how it will look like when it's actually doing the testing thing, because it's very abstract in the beginning, of course. So we have to see a link collection is not yet there. Good. I could do it differently. Arrange that. Okay, so let's stay back here because that's actually the interesting part. So that's the application here. So it's basically creating now the file. What I'm doing very often here as well is to have those changes open here. And that's actually something Junie is doing better than Claude Code. Claude Code is very bad, and I saw many comments so far with people complaining that they don't like CLI because it's hard for them to follow and to see what's actually going on. This is the reason why I would open those changes so you can follow those changes at least here. I don't want to follow every change right now here because sometimes it builds something and then it sees, oh, it is not what I want to build. I change it again. That does it actually very often. Like a human, it is actually doing like a human. So you wouldn't basically say to a human, stop, don't do that, because that's not a pair programming session. So I'm not telling and the other is writing. So this thing is now writing and telling. So I need to let it do, and then we're going for a more type of review session and go through it. This is the way how I learn for myself, and my colleagues do as well, how we basically prompt better. So it was basically now writing the first thing. Since we don't have any better things to do right now, we of course read it here. So we have some unversioned files. It's basically creating now stuff. So test case, it probably read. Did it already create the item? No. So it's probably a red thing. So it's basically creating the test without having the components so far. So the test would not run probably because, because of it can't compile in that way. You need to just wait a little bit. So run test, verify the implementation. Type check, create the main component. It's actually now creating the main component. And here you see, I think, why so many people don't like that. It is very hard to follow what's actually going on. We see error messages, which are totally pointless because they are part of some kind of underlying process of how the dev server is running, or my local CLI thing is working. And now we have a little bit of code, and then it basically goes into running a thing. I don't even really see how the test is running. It's a little bit like not very well made in terms of communication. And if you really don't like, or you really have an issue with those kind of things, take a look for Junie, which is actually just if you use JetBrains, of course. So that's that one here. It is a lot more, let's say, visual, and you can basically see in the history and click on changes, and it opens the differences between those changes. It is way, let's say, the developer experience is way better, even though Claude Code still seems to be more solid to be an agent, but that's what I'm verifying right now. I always said that Claude Code is faster than Junie with GPT or Cursor CLI with GPT-5. Right now, it doesn't feel like that, so maybe it was a subjective assumption of mine. Well, we see. So Benedict asking, would be nice to get a rough cost estimate of the tokens used. We will do that. We will do that after each prompt now. I can't do that right now. I think I can't do that right now. I need to wait until it's finished, and then we can take a look how far we actually are, how many tokens we use, what the wall time is. The wall time is the time we have the session open. the CLI session. The API time is basically the API time. Well, it's easy explained. And of course, the tokens and which models were used. You don't have in Claude Code any way to define the model you want to use. It is basically not possible to do that. In Junie, you can do that right now. In Cursor CLI, you can do that as well, I think. Between Claude and GPT-5 right now, I think. But it is not like having too many of these kind of models available. So with Claude Code, you are definitely in the Claude space, and it defines which models to use for tooling, for thinking, and these kind of things. And it decides itself when it does deep thinking. While ChatGPT-5, you can basically, GPT-5 with Junie, you can basically say, think more, and it basically thinks more, right? It's a little bit like telling an employee to think more. No, joking. And you have Brave mode. Basically, it does basically command execution. It's a little bit different here, but it helps you a little bit to understand what the differences are. So it's basically going through the tests right now. It basically the iterations. I don't know if that is actually integration test. I don't know what that actually means. I always thought it's an integration test. Let me know in the comments if I am wrong here, what the IT actually means. I never looked it up. So it does mount some components here. It already makes changes. This is the reason why I don't stop, because it has created this, and now it has created this because it was assuming that, oh, I was missing something. And that is why I just, let it do. It does make sense. I'll quickly take a peek. So we have now the item. I can take a look visually at what happens. So not so far, not so much. Okay, we see already some UI. That's interesting. I remember now that I've totally forgot to. What I've done today is I just typed along because I wanted to show you here in the thing how this is actually, the very basic way when you start. What I have in reality is I have some templates for me. So I have a huge to-do file, which I use. And there I copy and paste many blocks I have already used. And let me quickly take a look. I have it open on another screen because there are some notes I can't show on stream. But if I, for example, CMS controls, like something like this, I could have done this as well. Only show when this hook both are true. Otherwise, it's read-only mode. In the editor mode, okay, I have copied it entirely, but that's some kind of extra information I have forgot right now, and I need to take a look if I can fix that. We will need to fix that then. It does hopefully know because of the context about this, but as you see, there are some aspects which are more important for me in a specific task. So I repeat them outside of the actual context. That is what I do. But we see this button here. It's very likely that it is already following those rules. But we will check later in the code review process. It already looks a little bit like what I want to have, but I can't test it here right now because it's actually a test environment. I need to test it a little later. So let's get back to Claude Code and what's doing right now and stay with that one. It takes fairly long. So we are now just in the execution of things already in 15,000 tokens. And we have, of course, in between here, some other tokens where we see the results, but not that much. So it's actually, during the planning phase, it was already collecting most things. And now it's basically going through, and it's only using the tokens of the direct session layer. This is how I actually call it because I don't know how to call it, but it's actually what I see here. This is the ongoing iteration. This is this layer. And if you don't see any other numbers, so I assume that this is everything it used. And this is fairly okay for the amount of code we produce right now. And here you see already, if you would do all these cases by yourself, which is actually quite a lot. I'm not sure. I haven't. Okay, those are sub cases. Okay, never mind. It basically did it. So it basically it has written down all the test or the entire test plan before it was actually doing the implementation. That is something interesting as well, because let's say many TDD people say you need to do it test by test. Well, you can do that, or have a test plan and then do it test by test. Well, it's actually doing something like that. So it was written down in a test plan in form of red, but it doesn't really go through the cycle of red, green, blue, right? And then go for the next one, maybe committed already. This is not what happens here. So it is a TDD-like approach, but it's not really TDD in a way that many people would define it, I think. But yes, I can't even follow really what happens here. I just get a glance. And that is one of those reasons why I actually don't follow it during that too much anymore, because it's a good time to get a coffee, I don't know, to do some other things, to take a look for something which you might need to do, or something, or plan the next step ahead already. That could be a little bit, let's say, a little bit better right now, right? To go for the next situation, to plan already the image stuff, the icon stuff, or something like that, just as a new draft into your text file, which could be done here, right? Just go for the next to do and just type it out here while it's working. So because you need to, in my opinion, you need to leverage the AI. You can't really do something. If you try to intervene here right now, it will take ages. So if you don't like that approach, and if you think that approach doesn't lead you to any form of successful thing, you shouldn't do it. Because it is, if you really go every little thing after each other, you can do that, but it takes ages. And in many aspects, I had these discussions with colleagues very often as well, is it really then worth it to use the AI? Because if you do it every little iteration yourself, well, you can really do it yourself then, because it might be a little bit less fast, but you know exactly what you have. So there's a trade-off here. So the trade-off is we assume that our code base is clean, the context is correct, the prompt was decent, at least, right? And the tests are the guardrails. So what happens here does follow rules. So we have passed the design system, we have passed the page content, or the content page system, and Claude Code does give a lot of information about how to develop, where to find things, how components are structured, right? So let's take a look at, okay, we had that already, the files were correctly created, and it's done. Okay, that was sudden. I wasn't expecting that so fast. First of all, to meet the ongoing promise, is we have a cost right now from $3.75 in a total API time of 14 minutes and a wall time of 60 minutes, which means we have 20 minutes left right now. We have lines added, 600 lines, and we have 70 lines removed. The question is, I don't know exactly how it counts those, because there weren't any, let's say, existing files here. So it was probably counting its own additions. So that's probably not the total files added, like in the result, but during the process, right? So this is how I understand it right now. And here you see we have 3.5 haiku and sonnet, mostly sonnet. Haiku is just probably, I don't know exactly why, or what's the difference here, but yeah, that's it. So that's what you can do. By the way, we don't have the max plan, we have the API plan, because otherwise it is simply too expensive. So the max plan is in fact more expensive for us than the API plan, which is the reason why we're still paying as we go. So right, okay, that's the point. So let's take a look at the test. It's pretty red for the actual implementation. That's great. So the delete button is not finding the delete button. Okay. There is a code smell. I need to fix that a little bit. This is an old ticket. We finally need to do that. We have in the test IDs for the button itself in the test IDs for the buttons, like icon, button, and button. We have a dash button suffix. Please fix that and make sure. Please fix that. Second, why are the tests not working. I asked that question now for demo purposes. I go into plan mode because I want to know from the AI why those tests don't pass, because the task was to get those tests done, and there's a lot not going on. And I have never read the actual summary, which is a mistake as well. So summary, I've successfully implemented component following the TDD approach. Jagni, no, you have not. That's first of all a lie. GPT-5 does that better. So GPT-5 tells you I can't complete that. And this is one of those aspects I don't like in Claude. It is a little bit like GPT-4 was, or for is that. It's a little bit like there's always something in the box. I don't like that. It is not. So maybe it was correct implemented. So we can take a look at it in a moment, but it's not finished yet. So it was creating files, in-place editing. It was dynamic links, URL validation, drag and drop, blah, blah, blah. Test coverage for all major functionality, proper typing with no any types. Yeah, that's cool. Existing patterns, types of compilation passes, using existing. It doesn't tell anything about the component is running that the tests weren't running. That's a little bit like annoying, but let's take a look what it tells us when we ask it for. Of course, it costs a little bit of money, but I want to learn, right, as well. So why? That's one of the processes as well. It is not final. So working with agentic coding means that you learn every time something new. So the experience is like new for me every time I start to do that. So it's far from deterministic. And it's okay for me, because as long as I can take a look at the review, and as long as I don't see after 2 days that I start to waste my time, it is okay for me. So it is for me, during a time period, I need to verify that. And so far I can say it's okay. It's actually beneficial. But there is always something like that where you need to, do something about that. So based on my research, differently, that's a cold smell. Definitely we need to fix that. Change the icon button test ID from to delete will become delete button. Test run, 6 tests are passing and the test failing. Issue looking for test element. Fix test ID to test delete. Okay, and let's quickly let it run. While that, we take a look at the actual component. This is what it was creating. So is it still readable? Tell me if it's not readable. So that's the so we have an interface now which is not exported. That's good. It's passed to a proper typed functional component. We have the props here. We have a reference here. We have link items, layout slice 1. Yeah, okay, that's okay. Handle reorder, use effect. We have a use effect. Always take a look for use effects. Probably what I don't see here, so there's already something missing. So it will basically be always orderable now. So I mentioned that with the hook. I was forgetting. There is no admin mode right now, but we just for reviewing purposes, that should have been done from my side, and that wasn't very much probably prepared on my side. But yeah, so we have the CMS title here with the index 0, which is correct. We have the rich text element, which is for the content. We have it like with the index 0 here as well. It uses a CSS class module here, which isn't defined. So that's an issue. I should have told, I think I've done that already in my other things, that it should use. So that's one of those things. Let's get quickly back to the board. I told that here I was a little bit too fast today, to be honest. Where is it? A rich text here. In this moment where I define something like that, it is very good to go a little bit deeper into what you actually want to have. I had the same issue today with the text field, which was like a little bit like href URL, blah, blah, blah. I never told that I want to have a specific way of validating it. That was a mistake. And a mistake as well was to not tell here exactly what kind of things you need. So it could be like, just go with default settings. So like this one. And that would be already enough for the AI to understand, shall I do something or not? So what you do here is basically you narrow down the possibilities. And this is what I haven't done. So I was assuming that, but it is not wrong. And that's my problem. It was a subjective assumption of my side. It is actually good that it does this, right? But I don't want to have special cases here right now. I have never told it. So that is basically in the space of Claude was able to define that. What I could do right now is say, okay, maybe there is something like that already existing in form of CSS, rich text collection. It's indeed, right? So I take a look here then and tell it later that it shall, I make a note for myself, it shall look it up right now and actually add those files, otherwise we don't have it. And that could be then something I can fix right now. But as you see, it is extremely about this stuff. So you could have made that different because telling it afterwards is the very same in the process like telling it beforehand in the right way. But it's less expensive and just costs less time. Okay, let's take a look. It's still doing. So that's something I want to talk about Claude as well. GPT-5 with Junie and Cursor CLI do run way longer and try it way longer than Claude does. So Claude sometimes simply decides to say I'm done without being done. And that is very often when those kind of things like I can't get a test done. So it is simply a little bit like I'm done. So just take a look and tell me if I'm done. It's a little bit like it doesn't really know or seem to know that it's done or not. It simply assumes it is. And this is what I don't like. And again, it is very much about the prompt. So I would say in 3 out of 4 cases, it is pretty accurate, the result. Today, we have the other case where things aren't that ideal. But let's take a look at the actual outcome. So it does have now a functional test, so it renders the title. So now we would need to go basically through the entirety of the tests, right? So we need to make a review. Otherwise, I wouldn't dare to actually, submit that to our code base. I just don't want, I don't believe in those kind of things, but let's go quickly through it because we have just 15 minutes left today. Okay, so it basically creates a mock layout in the same file. Yeah, I never told differently. We have default props, so it does do something with props here because we said we want to have props. So it basically defines those. It resets basically the stub before every iteration, then it goes through it. We have a mock wrapper that's normal. We need to have that one for the entirety of providers and everything we have for the entire system. This is the way how we test. So we use basically the idea of Cypress component testing, just for you to understand that one. And we need to have a partly integrated system, even though we don't have a connection to the server. Everything is disconnected from the server, but it still needs to be integrated with other components like theming and all these kind of translations we have to actually run properly. So it goes through things. This is pretty much what I very much dislike. I pretty much dislike it. So that's not good. But I have never told to do differently, even though I don't like that. And I wasn't used to it because in the last days I was working primarily with GPT-5. And this kind of thing didn't happen before. In the past it was. That's bullshit. Sorry to say that. That's actually not nice wording, but it is bullshit. I wouldn't do that like that because as soon as I change something, this test is broken. So that's basically very bad. Test ID ad link button, that's okay. That's acceptable. Accessibility would be better. I haven't defined that so far here in that way. So we could basically say the ad link in the role or something like that would be the one we expect here. So we would check that as well in the same moment. So we don't have that here, but that's okay. That could pass for the first iteration. We have yeah, that's how those items actually look like, and it basically was implementing that even with language codes in different languages, even though it's just one language, but it's English here in that one. So it is okay. way more test cases than I expected, so more review work. And I assume that I would basically change some tests now, and I would basically tell it to change some tests. That's what I would do. Otherwise, I could do it myself anyway. Okay, so I'm not super happy with the test it was creating, but they are passing right now. So this is definitely not the blue state in general right now, so we haven't refactored it yet. It is simply passing without we knowing that there is a lot to do. So right now, for my verdict so far, was that I saw and I learned for myself today during that session, now being live with you, that I was going way too far, right? So even though I can quickly test it here right now and add a new, it's not available. So that's one of the things as well. Now I do something vibing, make it available in CMS page loader TSX. That is a very easy thing to do. So we will see that as an item, so I can finally put it in so we can use it a little bit and take a look what happens now. So as you see, I'm doing a lot of content about that as well, a lot of posts where I share my thoughts about that. And as soon as you go too much into a full feature, and that was the topic of today, try to build a full feature, that it's a little bit like, it doesn't feel 100% right? So as soon as you start to do that, you are supposed to finish that in one go, right? And here we see already something which is concerning, and this is that one, this context left until autocompact, which is not much, right? So we need to really get this first iteration done, and then it needs to basically reread the entire thing we have built to re-understand it. So hopefully the first iteration is working when I test it right now. Otherwise, that was basically a wasted amount of money. So how much time would I now need to actually refactor that one, including the component here? Inside that component, it seems, first of all, it seems okay. So I have no issues here. I see that needs to have a little bit more love here, right? Because there's probably no styles defined, but we could do that. That's something we can easily add. We have the button here. It's not translated, but I have forgot to tell we need to have translations, even though it's passed into Claude MD. That's an issue in general, which is another reason to not go with too much things at the same time, is that it basically forgets to translate things. So this is a literal, and in our system, it's a rule that it must be a translation key, right? It can be have a fallback like add link, but it must have a translation key. It isn't the case. So I need to basically pass the context again of translations or localizations, and then go through everything and do that again. So that's a little bit not so ideal in that moment. It's still stewing. We are now at 10%. Okay, that is a not so nice presentation today, but that's normal. So it's sometimes it is like that. We're taking a look at the costs in a moment. I assume that we ending somewhere between $5 and $8. This is pretty much the space where we are, and we have quite a lot of code. But here we don't have. Oh, wait a second. Link item. We haven't taken a look at the link item. So we have in the link item a proper that's okay. The component looks good. Tailwind looks good. My formatter is actually not working because I version issue, so I can't take a look if the formatting was correct. But it looks okay. So from the order, it's not bad. So we have a title here again. We have a rich text here again. We have a text here as we have defined it. This is the validation. This is what I told. It would be actually URL and relative. I don't change it right now because I don't change things while it's working, because the only thing you do is you let it read again the file, which is costing a lot of tokens. So I basically don't change that and save it. I let it go through. So the text feed is there, as well as the icon button with the trash icon, text danger. That's okay. So we have a color system, but it's not applying here because it's an admin function. We have a handle delete. The handle delete is on delete. It's a wrapping thing within index. Okay, we can do that. On delete is a property. Property is probably passed into that one, and that one is passed here as well. So we have a little bit of prop drilling here, which is okay. It's easier to test. We could do that without, but so having the mutation directly in the component, I have done that. Sometimes we do that. It's not like we have 100% pattern here. That's an issue on our side. So everyone has issues, right? But that's something like yeah. But we need to get soon to the actual part. Okay, so it did add that. So let's take a quick look. Do we have something here now? Yeah, we have a link collection without an icon. That's okay. I needed to create an icon for that one. So we have now an add link, which is a not so nice plus icon here. I add a link right now. New link. Okay, just probably because of missing. This is then my LinkedIn page. I can save it. There's a content page below that. There is no space whatsoever, so there is no styling made so far. I don't see any delete button right now. I don't know. That's missing. So it is existing. Probably it's not visible right now. In some sense, I can. No, never mind. Sorry, my fault. That was the headline and the thingy. Okay, so we have a link here now. That's the correct one. My fault. So we basically have that one. We basically add that one. Then we have an example here, which is okay. And if we close it, okay, that's not what it meant to be. I haven't defined that anyway. So now I need to put basically in the next iteration, that wouldn't be a text field. As soon as I turn off the controls, the icon should disappear, the field should disappear, and we should have a clickable version, pretty much like that one. So I can click on that one. That shouldn't be here. But again, I have never prompted it, so I don't. That's definitely on my side. Can I add another one? Yes, it is. Is it reloadable? It's a test as well. So it is reloadable. It's not deletable. Why is it not deletable? Not found. I have clicked 2 times. Maybe there we have an yeah. Okay, that's an issue with local state. So the state of the actual page isn't updated. So that's my fault. Okay. So let's take a look at the cost. $6.30 in 20 minutes API time. So that's your total wall time. So we have now so far round about 12 million cache read. That's a lot. So 12 million tokens, and the real new tokens were actually 60,000 or so, maybe 70,000. So that's basically for you out there. Okay, I'm now coming to an end because that would be now an iteration. So when you do this approach, which we don't do always, we do sometimes because I want to test. I really speak openly to you right now because I like to test out things. The reason is it is our code base, we own the code base, and we are a mature team, which means that we only push things if we really think they are okay to go out, because it's the result that matters. Sometimes tests, or it feels a little bit like we are in a space where it takes long until we get to the point. But very often we see that it is pretty much something which really pushes us forward. And this is what I really like about the agentic approach. But we need to understand, and that is very important, that there are 2 ways to do that. The third way, which is vibe coding, is a no-no. So you already saw how much decision-making space the AI actually has with me giving that kind of prompt, right? That is, and that there's already so many things. It made decisions for me. So I wasn't testing the handling thing. I wanted to quickly see if it was. There's actually no. Oh, there's a drag handle. It does. Sorry for my little bit of my ADHD is going through right now. I quickly wanted to test that one. Reloading the page. This is always the hard test. I was. Yes, it was working. Okay, that's actually working. So Function-wise, it's actually okay. So the tests weren't okay, and I'm not confident with the tests. I say it openly. I don't like how it was testing, but I was actually telling it to do it that way. It did though my learning now, if I would do that again for production purposes, would be to really go more into detail of an entirety of plan, make it into smaller chunks, and really go into the create an item first. Let's only talk about the item, right? Create the item, the link item, which we see here right now. Let's talk about this one, talk about the interface, talk about its parent, and then go into that one and do test by test for that without expecting to have that into a 60 to 90-minute streaming session done. The correct time to get that right is, I think, 2 context windows. So we're talking about 2 times this. This is because we have built a lot of things already with that. The first iterations were way longer because we were way less experienced when it comes to agentic. Right now, it is very predictable, but we really think in context windows. The reason is the size of the code base and the context files we have. If we don't do that in the very beginning, it was totally off. In my first videos, we hadn't context files with just the Claude Code file, the basic Claude Code file, and it was all over the place. It was fascinating, but it was very, let's say, very general. It wasn't very, let's say, it wasn't very to the point of what we wanted to do with our code base. So I will write that down. I will make a post out of that one, just to sum it up, my assumptions here. But we should have done it in iterations. So at least, let's say, split it into 2 or 3 iterations. Not only the stuff which we have done so far, and pay more attention to the tests. It was very lazy of mine to say, I just define some tests. I said, define 3 test cases, probably behavioral test cases, because we have defined it in Claude Code. This is the reason why I basically made this categories, but I don't even know if those were good ones. Let me know in the comments right now. You're still there? Yeah, you're still there. Good. Let me know afterwards in DMs or whatever what you think about that. Would be very interesting. In the next days, I will post about that again. I'll probably make a follow-up session with the title "Done Right." So probably I take more, let's say, more like an approach where I prepare better for that session, so I don't need to write it down during the session. We've already done it already, and really say, okay, this is now a package. I have spent, let's say, 15 minutes into planning the feature. The execution was like, let's say, 20-30 minutes, and it was actually doing in 2 or 3 iterations, and then it's basically done. When you would do that with other agents, the results are pretty much similar with variations. One is testing better, so ChatGPT-5 is definitely writing the better tests, and it's probably the reason why I've done that, because I was used to that. GPT understands, it looks up how you test normally, and it then does testing. And I didn't see that here. So that's very artificial. So what we just saw here, calls on create. This is functionality test. This is not really how we test. We would test that if we would click on add link, we would assume that another item would appear. That is the behavior we want to test in that moment. Not necessarily that we fire a function. So I assume that a function which is put upon that is actually fired and a button is working, but the button does have its own functionality unit tests. So we made sure that the basic elements are tested, and we want to have the actual behavior tested, and that's not done. GPT-5 is doing that. So I'm pretty much like, I was a big fan of Claude Code so far. In the last days, I have the tendency to work more with the Junie, actually. Cursor CLI is a little bit like, it's not a good UI right now. So or CLI UI, it's very much it feels like day one of Claude Code. I can quickly show it. It's interesting. Cursor CLI? No. Cursor agent, sorry. Cursor agent, that one. So it pretty much looks similar, even though It doesn't have a cost overview or anything. You can change models here, I think. Yeah, you can change between Opus, Sonnet, GPT-5. Exactly, it's standard with GPT-5. It works very much the same, like Claude Code, but doesn't have a real plan. Does it have a plan mode? It does have a plan mode now. Okay, it does. Actually, not a plan mode, but a auto run or not auto run. That's actually here better with a plan mode or auto run or none. And you have a better context window thingy left down there. Okay. Am I happy with what we have done today? Would I take it? I'm a person who says, what we see here is okay, but I would start to rewrite it myself. So that's the thing I do, because I can do that. I would start from that point on to say, thank you for bringing me to 80%. That's definitely not more than 80% what we have achieved so far. It doesn't look like I expected it. I have never defined it in the correct way. I have to say that. I basically didn't define the tests, so I need to accept the outcome. And that is, so overall, it's pretty much, it's low level decent, let's say. It is okay. It helped me a lot because it's a lot of scaffolding. It's front end, it's a lot of scaffolding. But the majority of stuff was on the testing side, which is probably not what I want to have. So it's a little bit on the edge. That is one of the worst things I have done in the last weeks. And we need to definitely repeat that with a way where we build that in one go, not in one go, in two goes, as we said, but in a correct way. So I have waffled now a lot. If there are any last questions, happy to have those now. No more comments so far, but people are quite listening quiet. Okay, so that's it for now. I actually need to go. I have a meeting now. I hope that helped you a little bit to understand agentic coding so far. Was it a very good session right now? No, it wasn't. But it wasn't bad either. So it could be used, even though it wasn't very efficient. So if people would see this as the default standard, I can understand why people say that, okay, that's not ideal. Maybe we do that by hand, especially when coding is not the bottleneck in your company, which is different in startups and different in established companies, of course. But let's take a look next time what I can learn out of that myself, and even on stream, because I don't really stream about that. I use it for myself, and I do it a little different in approach. And that is what I saw as well. So I really need to focus more on what I actually do to get a better result. So let's take a look at this maybe on Thursday. And thank you for your time. I wish you a great day. Have a nice one. Goodbye, everyone.